Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome to the deep dive.
It's great to be here.
This week, we received a stack of sources that truly, it spans the entire spectrum of human knowledge and global experience.
It's a lot.
It really is. We are talking about analyzing fundamental physics, like the very nature of time itself, alongside, the geopolitical chess moves that are shaping the immediate future of Eastern Europe.
It's a massive intellectual lift, for sure.
It is.
But our mission for you, the listener, is not just to read the headlines. It's to synthesize the knowledge into cohesive, impactful insight.
We want you to grasp the so what behind it all.
Exactly. The profound forces driving these stories. And as we were sifting through everything, three major thematic pillars immediately stood out. They really define the deep dive we're about to take.
Okay, so what are those pillars? Lay them out for us.
First up, we have what we're calling the new biology. This is revolutionary science. It's where artificial intelligence is fundamentally reshaping medicine, aging, and our understanding of genetics.
Okay, that's a big one. What's second?
Second, we'll dive into consciousness and human resilience. This is where things get a little weird in a good way. We're exploring groundbreaking physics discoveries about time itself and the extraordinary biological capacity for survival.
Whether that's in ancient organisms or just in our daily habits.
Precisely. And the third, the high-stakes table.
The one that keeps everyone up at night.
That's the third pillar, geopolitics and global conflict. Here we have to navigate the complexities of modern diplomacy, the high-leverage bargaining happening in places like Belarus, and, of course, the critical concessions being debated in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict.
And we have to do it all while maintaining absolute political balance.
That's the core mission.
So that is a journey from the core of the quantum world to the highest levels of diplomatic power. Our goal is to ensure that by the time we finish, you are not just well-informed, but you understand the interconnectedness of these global shifts.
You'll see the threads connecting them all.
Ready to begin our deep dive into the source material.
Absolutely. Let's start with the most rapidly changing landscape, that intersection of science and technology, the new biology.
It feels like KI is showing up everywhere these days, but its role in health research it's truly revolutionary.
It really is.
It's not just optimizing logistics or something boring like that. It's actively finding new therapeutic targets that human researchers just missed.
Yeah, and the first powerful example we saw was AI making a huge leap in orthopox virus research.
Orthopox virus, so like smallpox and mpox.
That's right. And this is just a perfect demonstration of machine learning's capacity to handle these massive biological data sets and, find the needle in the haystack.
So what did it find?
Researchers deployed these AI models to analyze the complex structure of the monkeypox virus, or mpox as it's now called. What the AI identified was a previously underexplored protein.
One that humans had sort of overlooked.
Exactly, a protein that plays a pivotal role in mediating the immune response.
So why is this one single protein so important? What's the big deal?
Well, because when they took this specific protein, the one pinpointed by the AI, and they included it in a potential vaccine formulation, it generated an extraordinarily robust neutralizing antibody response in mouse models. The AI just bypassed years of traditional, slow, trial and error biology.
And the so what here extends beyond just mpox, doesn't it? This has bigger implications.
Absolutely. Mpox belongs to the orthopox virus family, which, as you said, includes the far more severe smallpox virus.
Which is eradicated in the wild, but still a huge biosecurity concern.
A very serious concern. So this AI-driven discovery provides a streamlined, targeted pathway to developing highly effective cross-protective vaccines and treatments for the entire orthopox virus family.
It dramatically enhances our pandemic preparedness.
Right. It's a new tool in the toolbox.
Okay, so shifting gears entirely from viral threats to the silent, slow threat of modern life, chronic stress.
Yes.
And here's where AI offers another just fascinating layer of insight. Researchers use deep learning to essentially find an invisible biomarker for long-term stress.
A biomarker that was embedded in routine medical imaging.
That's the wild part.
This is truly game-changing for preventative medicine. So, the researchers focused on the adrenal glands.
Which sit right on top of your kidneys.
Exactly. And these glands are responsible for pumping out stress hormones, primarily cortisol.
Right, the fight or flight hormone.
Right. So when a person is under chronic, long-term stress, these glands hypertrophy, they actually become enlarged from the constant activity.
So constant stress leads to physically larger adrenal glands. It's a physical marker.
Precisely. The researchers then developed what they're calling the Adrenal Volume Index, or AVI. This is an imaging-based biomarker derived from a deep learning AI model that quantifies the volume of these adrenal glands.
Wait. So this can be quantified from common existing scans, like a chest CT that I might get for pneumonia or a collapsed lung?
Exactly. That's the genius of it. The AI can pull this AVI measurement from those routine procedures, scans that are already being performed for totally unrelated reasons. And they found that the AVI correlates strongly with dangerously high cortisol levels, but even more importantly, with the concept of allostatic load.
Okay, remind us what allostatic load is again.
Allostatic load is the cumulative wear and tear on your body's systems, your cardiovascular, metabolic, endocrine systems, caused by chronic exposure to stress and the effort to adapt to it over time.
It's the physical cost of being stressed out for years.
It is, and this concept goes right back to the foundational work of Hans Selye in the mid-20th century. He's the one who identified the general adaptation syndrome.
Selye's theory was that persistent stress just exhausts the body, leading eventually to systemic failure.
That's the one.
So Selye gave us the theory of systemic exhaustion, and now AI gives us a quantifiable, predictive way to see the physical damage caused by that exhaustion years in advance.
That's the profound insight here. Crucially, the AVI isn't just a measure of feeling stressed. The sources indicate it is highly predictive of long-term cardiovascular outcomes, including your future risk of heart failure.
So a doctor could look at a chest CT from 5 years ago.
Yes, exactly. They could see an elevated AVI and realize the patient is at severe risk, enabling early intervention and stress management long before a cardiac event ever occurs.
It turns routine diagnostics into powerful preventative health tools.
A total game changer.
That is a remarkable shift. Now let's pivot from chronic stress to the biological process of aging itself. And I find it so inspiring that one of the major aging breakthroughs we saw actually originated from a student's idea at the Mayo Clinic,
It's a great story.
targeting what are called zombie cells.
These are the senescent cells. They're cells that have suffered damage, they've stopped dividing, but critically they refuse to die. They just hang around.
And they accumulate in our tissues as we age. They're not just sitting there, are they?
No, they're not inert. They actively secrete this cocktail of detrimental inflammatory proteins.
And this inflammatory accumulation is often cited as the root cause for almost all age-related diseases. Frailty, neurological issues, metabolic syndrome.
Absolutely, it's a core driver. The challenge for researchers has always been, how do you identify and target these zombie cells in vivo, inside a living body, with any kind of precision?
And that's where the innovation comes in.
Right, the use of aptamers.
Okay, tiny DNA molecules. Help us understand why aptamers solve this specific problem.
Aptamers are essentially synthetic DNA or RNA molecules, and they're designed to adopt highly specific 3D shapes. You can think of them like microscopic, customizable keys.
Keys designed to fit only one specific lock.
Exactly. And in this case, the lock is the unique protein marker found exclusively on the surface of those senescent cells.
So they are far, far more selective than previous methods of detection.
Yes. They can selectively bind to and tag these senescent cells in living tissues, and that level of precision is the breakthrough.
So once you can tag them, you can target them.
Now, the door is wide open for the development of senolytics drugs that are specifically engineered to clear these toxic, non-dividing cells from the body.
And the ultimate goal here isn't just adding years to life, which is just lifespan extension.
Right.
It's significantly extending health span, the period of life lived in robust health.
Precisely. It's moving away from simply treating age-related diseases after they show up to proactively dismantling the underlying biological machinery of aging itself.
That is the new paradigm.
It really is.
Speaking of genetic hope, we also saw a major advancement for a truly devastating rare genetic disorder, Friedreich's ataxia, or FRDA.
A terrible disease.
It affects coordination and muscle function because patients lack critical protein called frutaxin.
And frataxin is essential for mitochondrial function. It's like the fuel manager for the cell's powerhouse,
So the traditional strategy has been trying to restore this missing frataxin protein.
which has proven extremely difficult. So this new research took an indirect but brilliantly effective approach.
They focused on regulation instead of restoration.
That's the key. Researchers found that by selectively inhibiting a different gene, the FDX2 gene, they could achieve a compensatory effect,
A workaround.
a biological workaround. FDX2 inhibition improved energy processing mechanisms in human cellular models and also in worm and mouse models. The cells were able to adapt and process energy efficiently, even without enough frataxin.
That suggests the cell has built-in redundancy mechanisms if we can just find the right regulatory switch to flip.
Exactly. It offers a completely novel, gene-targeted therapeutic strategy that essentially bypasses the primary defect. This is huge for the FRDA community.
But it also has much broader implications.
It does.
Because mitochondrial dysfunction, that core failure of energy management, underlies so many conditions, right?
It does. Everything from Parkinson's disease to various metabolic syndromes. Energy metabolism is a central theme. Understanding how inhibiting FDX2 compensates for frataxin loss, it gives us deep insights into regulatory pathways that govern energy.
Pathways that could be exploited for a whole host of other seemingly unrelated neurological and metabolic disorders.
It's a whole new avenue for research.
And we can't leave the biology segment without talking about the insights from the GLP-1 receptor agonist class of drugs.
Ah, yes, drugs like Ozempic or Wegovy.
Exactly. Beyond the weight loss and diabetes effects, there's a surprising benefit emerging for brain health.
Yes, semaglutide. A correlation study suggested that patients using Ozempic were less likely to develop neurological conditions, specifically epilepsy, when they were compared to control groups on other diabetes medications.
No, we absolutely have to stress this is correlation, not causation. It's very preliminary.
Absolutely. We need long-term randomized control trials. That's essential. However, the emerging evidence points towards a potential neuroprotective effect that is, frankly, too significant to just ignore.
Why would a diabetes drug protect the brain?
While other similar GLP-1 molecules have been observed to reduce inflammation in the brain and improve cerebral blood flow.
And since chronic inflammation in the brain is a hallmark of so many debilitating conditions, like Alzheimer's disease, this fundamentally challenges the way we think about treatment.
It does. It means that the key to managing neurodegenerative disease may not be a purely neurological drug at all, but a metabolic one. It opens a massive new avenue of research, suggesting a deep, bidirectional link between metabolic health and brain health that we are only now starting to fully appreciate.
And linking metabolism back to the gut, Harvard researchers further solidified this gut-liver axis connection,
showing how specific gut molecules enhance insulin sensitivity.
This is all about the microbiome, isn't it?
It is. They identified specific molecules produced by our gut bacteria that don't just stay in the digestive tract. They migrate directly to the liver.
Okay, and what did they do there?
Once they get there, they regulate energy metabolism and were observed to significantly enhance insulin sensitivity in liver cells.
And insulin sensitivity, being able to use insulin effectively, that's the key defense against type 2 diabetes and obesity.
Correct. Poor insulin sensitivity is the starting line for metabolic disease. So this discovery means that instead of relying solely on broad lifestyle changes or traditional drugs, treatments could eventually be tailored.
Tailored to an individual's gut environment.
Exactly. Maybe through precision prebiotics or specific diets to directly produce these beneficial molecules and regulate systemic energy better. The future of metabolic health is microscopic.
Okay, moving from the microscopic world of biology to the macroscopic world of fundamental physics. This next topic is genuinely mind-bending.
I love this one.
We have groundbreaking confirmation of time reflections in physics, which, I mean, it sounds like something straight out of advanced quantum theory.
It is, and the concept is challenging because it forces us to rethink how information propagates through space and time.
Okay, break it down for us in basic terms.
In basic terms, when electromagnetic waves like light or radio signals encounter a medium that changes its properties very, very rapidly and fundamentally, they exhibit a reversal of their temporal characteristic.
What do you mean by reversing temporal characteristics? Is time itself reversing, or are we talking about time travel?
No, not that we can travel back in time, but the wave itself behaves as if time were reversed for it. Imagine a signal moving forward with a certain frequency and phase.
Yeah.
When it hits this rapidly changing medium, it essentially gets converted into a time-reversed copy of itself. The math behind it is like the frequency of the wave increases as if it were moving backward in time relative to its own propagation.
That's why popular mechanics described it using that analogy of seeing your own back in a hypothetical time mirror.
Exactly. It's the temporal equivalent of a spatial reversal in a regular mirror.
So who did this and how?
Researchers at CUNY, the City University of New York, they achieved this experimentally. They used specially engineered metamaterials.
Synthetic structures with properties you don't find in nature.
Right. And by rapidly switching the electrical properties of this material, they created the abrupt change necessary to induce this time-reversed behavior in the signals passing through.
This sounds incredibly exotic, but what are the profound practical implications for technology?
Oh, the implications are huge. If you can manipulate the temporal direction of a signal, you can revolutionize communication and imaging.
Yeah.
Well, this opens the door for ultra-fast, high-precision wireless communication systems that can overcome current limitations. It could lead to advanced imaging techniques and highly accurate timing technologies that are crucial for things like GPS and the next generation of quantum computing.
So you're basically forcing engineers to use time as a new variable for controlling information.
You've got it. It's a whole new dimension to play with.
So if the external physical reality of time is this mutable, let's look at our internal reality. Consciousness.
Another fascinating area.
Scientists have now confirmed that lucid dreaming is not just a deeper sleep or a form of wakefulness, but a distinct third state of consciousness altogether.
This confirmation is based on intensive EEG monitoring. Lucid dreaming, where the dreamer is aware they are dreaming and can often control the narrative.
Right.
It shows a hybrid neurophysiological signature. It blends the characteristics of deep REM, or rapid eye movement sleep, which is associated with intense brain activity and vivid dreams,
With something else.
with something else crucial: the activation of the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the brain region we use for self-awareness, critical thinking, and decision-making when we are awake. The executive function part of our brain.
Precisely. In a typical dream state, that prefrontal cortex is largely inactive, which is why dream narratives can be so illogical and we just don't question them.
But in a lucid dream,
In a lucid dream, you have elements of waking cognition self-awareness, metacognition coexisting with the emotional intensity and rapid eye movement typical of REM sleep. This specific measurable signature is what validates it as a legitimate dissociative state, separate from the traditional sleep-wake binary.
and the power of harnessing this state for therapeutic practices is incredibly compelling.
It is transformative, particularly for conditions rooted in psychological trauma. If you can enter a state where you are aware you are dreaming, you can actively confront and modify a distressing or traumatic dream narrative.
So for patients with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or chronic anxiety.
Or recurrent nightmares, this offers a safe, controlled environment to actively process and alter subconscious fears and distress. It empowers them to heal their own subjective experience.
That theme of resilience, whether it's physical or psychological, is truly central to this deep dive. Which brings us to perhaps the most compelling story of pure biological survival I've ever heard.
I think I know which one you mean.
The revival of 24,000-year-old zombie worms, found frozen deep in Siberian permafrost.
These are tiny, multicellular organisms known as betaloid rotifers. And yes, Russian scientists successfully thawed them after they had been locked in the Pleistocene-era permafrost for millennia.
And they didn't just survive.
No. Astonishingly, they not only survived the thaw, but immediately rehydrated, resumed metabolic activity, and began reproducing asexually.
24 millennia. That is an incomprehensible span of suspended animation. How did they achieve that level of durability?
Through a mechanism called cryptobiosis. It's essentially a state of suspended animation where metabolic processes are almost entirely paused.
It's like hitting a pause button on life itself.
A very effective pause button. Rotifers are biological champions. They're capable of enduring extreme desiccation, deep freezing, and even intense radiation levels. Their ability to survive such a long, deep freeze demonstrates a level of biological hardiness that far exceeds what we typically associate with multicellular life.
It makes you reflect on the hubris of human timescales, doesn't it? Our entire recorded civilization lasts a few thousand years, and this tiny worm can pause its life for 10 times that long.
It does, but this feat also carries a weight of ethical and ecological consideration. While the scientific learning is immense, the melting of global permafrost due to climate change raises the very real possibility.
Of these ancient organisms entering modern ecosystems.
And the potential consequences of that. Exactly. We're talking about the ethics of de-extinction and the unpredictable consequences of ancient genetics interacting with contemporary biology.
We need to understand what else is locked away in that permafrost and what the potential cascade effects might be as it thaws.
It's a huge unknown.
Speaking of things that have a tremendous and sometimes hidden impact on our long-term existence, let's look at our own daily habits and resilience, specifically bone health.
Right. A decade-long study focused on older women in particular, and it offered a really stark contrast between two of the world's most popular drinks, tea and coffee.
Tea seems to be the quiet winner here from what I read.
It is. Tea drinkers over the decade showed a slightly stronger bone density and a reduced fracture risk.
And why is that?
The benefit is largely attributed to catechins, which are bioactive compounds in tea that help support bone formation.
And coffee?
Conversely, heavy coffee consumption, and they define this as over 5 cups a day, was linked to reduced bone density.
Especially when paired with high alcohol intake. That seemed to be the real problem combination.
That combination proved particularly detrimental. The takeaway isn't that coffee is bad. Moderate consumption showed no ill effects at all. But that excessive intake, combined with other risk factors, acts as a subtle drain on bone resilience.
And that's critical for an aging population facing rising osteoporosis risk.
Absolutely.
We also saw a subtle preventative finding related to multivitamins and blood pressure. It wasn't about curing hypertension, but more about preventing its insidious onset.
Right. The research found that daily multivitamin use quietly lowered blood pressure, but in a highly specific subgroup. Older adults who already had normal blood pressure but were identified as having deficient diets.
So it's about filling in the gaps.
Exactly. It suggests that micronutrient insufficiencies, even if they're subtle, can gradually escalate hypertension risk over time. So a simple supplement acts as a bridge, correcting those nutritional gaps before they manifest as a chronic disease.
It's a powerful validation of basic preventative health strategies. Sometimes the lowest tech intervention can address these underlying systemic issues.
Sometimes the simple things work best.
All right, let's shift our focus now up to the cosmos. The James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, continues to deliver data that forces astronomers to just, well, tear up old textbooks.
It really does, almost weekly at this point.
The discovery of an atmosphere on the exoplanet TOI 561b is completely wild. This is an ultra-hot rocky super-Earth.
And when you say ultra-hot, you mean it. It orbits its star in less than 11 hours.
An 11-hour year.
Right. And conventional wisdom says that proximity means the star's radiation should have photoevaporated or just stripped away any atmosphere eons ago.
It should be a bare, desiccated planet, a dense core remnant.
That's what the models predicted. Yet, JWST data strongly indicates it retains a substantial atmosphere.
And there's another mystery, right?
Yes, even more complex is the planet's unexpectedly low overall density. This density suggests that what we're seeing is likely a thick layer of gas, maybe made of heavier, more complex elements, situated above a global magma ocean.
So why does this planet, TOI 561b, specifically challenge our current hypotheses about how planets form?
Because our models of planet migration and atmospheric retention were based on the assumption that extreme stellar radiation would always strip away a gaseous envelope on such an ultra-short orbit, this planet's retention of gas suggests either that it formed very late in the star's life.
After the star had calmed down a bit.
Yeah, exactly. After the period of maximum stellar winds. Or that there are unique shielding mechanisms or unknown internal processes that are continually replenishing its atmosphere. It's a cosmic outlier that just demands new theories.
Speaking of extreme stellar physics, we also observed the dramatic revival of a sleeping neutron star.
That's P13, which is an ultraluminous X-ray source, or ULX.
So a neutron star is the ultra-dense remnant left after a massive star collapses.
The densest matter in the universe, basically. And over the past decade, astronomers watched P13 dramatically increase its X-ray luminosity, varying by factors of hundreds. Crucially, its rotation rate also accelerated significantly.
That acceleration is the telltale sign of mass accretion, right? It's actively feeding on something.
Yes, it is consuming matter from a companion star. And as that matter spirals onto the incredibly compact, dense surface of the neutron star, it releases this torrent of intense X-rays.
So watching it happen gives us a front row seat.
An unprecedented real-time insight into extreme stellar physics, the mechanisms that dictate how matter behaves under these crushing gravitational and magnetic forces.
Okay, let's move much closer to home now. The sheer volume of material we have launched into space has led scientists to propose we have entered a new geological epoch on our nearest neighbor.
The Lunar Anthropocene.
The term is provocative. We are all familiar with the concept of the Earth's Anthropocene, the age defined by human impact.
Right, so the Lunar Anthropocene recognizes the profound, permanent physical change humanity has inflicted on the moon since the 1960s.
What specifically are we leaving behind that justifies a whole new epoch designation? It can't just be some trash.
It's much more than that. Since the Apollo missions and beyond, over 100 spacecraft have visited. They've left behind footprints, spent rocket stages, science equipment, rovers, flags, and various other artifacts.
So these aren't just litter. They represent a fundamental, permanent material change to the lunar regolith.
Exactly. We are creating an entirely new sedimentary layer composed of human-made material, a new stratum.
This raises crucial ethical and legal questions about protecting celestial bodies, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We have to debate whether the moon should be treated as a resource to be exploited or as a cultural and scientific heritage site to be preserved. Recognizing the Lunar Anthropocene emphasizes the responsibility we now bear to manage our cosmic footprint.
And prevent the irreversible contamination of space environments.
That's the key.
And as we speak, that cosmic footprint is rapidly expanding. SpaceX logged a huge milestone in their launch program.
They successfully launched a Falcon 9 rocket carrying 27 Starlink satellites, and this marked a record 550th successful landing and reuse of their first stage booster.
The 550th time. The consistency and scale of this reusability is what's driving the whole space economy.
It is, and their competitor, Amazon, is right on their heels.
Of course.
Indeed. United Launch Alliance, or ULA, is set to launch an Atlas V rocket carrying 27 of Amazon's Project Kuiper satellites.
So both companies are locked in this high-stakes infrastructure race to establish global, low-Earth orbit internet access.
Which means the future of global communication is increasingly being determined dozens of miles above us.
Let's ground ourselves now and look at Earth's shifting history. Specifically, the collapse of the advanced Indus Valley civilization. New research confirms the primary driver was a long, unrelenting climate strain.
The IVC, which flourished in parts of modern Pakistan and northwest India, was one of the most sophisticated ancient urban societies, and its decline wasn't a sudden invasion or single catastrophe, but a gradual urbanization.
And it was caused by prolonged and severe drought.
That's what the evidence points to now.
How long did this climatic strain last?
The sources suggest that between 4,400 and 3,400 years ago, the region experienced severe drought episodes lasting anywhere from 85 to 200 years at a time.
A 200-year drought. That's unimaginable.
This relentless strain fundamentally reduced the monsoon rainfall, which was the lifeblood of their entire agricultural base.
That's a powerful cautionary tale. A civilization defined by its large, planned urban centers essentially had to disaggregate and fall apart.
They did. As the climate grew more and more arid and resources dwindled, populations were forced to disperse. They had to follow the diminishing water supplies, and that led to the gradual abandonment of major centers like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro.
It just underscores the profound fragility of even the most advanced human systems when they're faced with irreversible, centuries-long climate shifts.
A lesson from history for today.
Which brings us to a crucial modern vulnerability related to rainfall. Scientists have identified a hidden pattern that puts vast regions at risk today.
This is about the distinction between ocean-sourced moisture and land-sourced moisture. We typically think of rain coming from the sea, from evaporation over the ocean.
Right.
However, crops are highly vulnerable when rainfall is derived primarily from land-sourced moisture. That's moisture that evaporates from continental surfaces and is then recycled locally. This type of rainfall is typically less predictable and generally weaker.
And which critical regions rely heavily on this more vulnerable land-sourced moisture?
Regions at risk include the crucial agricultural belt of the U.S. Midwest and also parts of East Africa. And the risk is magnified in areas where soil desiccation and deforestation are occurring.
Because those factors weaken the local hydrological cycle, Less trees, less moisture in the air.
Precisely. So protecting our forests and implementing enhanced land management strategies isn't just an environmental luxury. It is a critical food security strategy for these vulnerable regions.
It's a direct, measurable link between conservation efforts and the stability of global food production. Finally, before we move on, we have some interesting biodiversity and historical signs. Australia continues to reveal its deep past.
It really does. Researchers discovered a new species of bettong, which is a ghost marsupial related to kangaroos, alongside 2 new subspecies of the endangered woylie.
And these came from fossils.
Yes, these identifications came from studying ancient fossils retrieved from the Nullarbor caves in Western Australia. It just reminds us how much of our planet's history is preserved in these geological time capsules.
And in the reptile world, Madagascar's long-nosed chameleon, Columba pinocchio, was finally recognized as its own distinct species.
Yes, after 150 years of being misidentified, its unique, elongated snout, which is often used to impress females, was finally recognized as a distinct feature. It highlights the rapid evolutionary forces driven by sexual selection and female mate choice in isolated environments like Madagascar.
And a fascinating historical find linked to a disaster.
A fisherman in Wisconsin discovered the wreck of the George L. Newman. This was a 19th century lumber trade vessel that met its end during the catastrophic Great Peshtigo Fire of 1871.
So the fire wasn't on the water.
No, the sheer density of the smoke from the fire on the shore obscured visibility on Green Bay so completely that it caused the ship to run aground and sink. It's a poignant artifact linking environmental disaster and maritime tragedy.
Okay, let's turn now to the highest stakes sector, geopolitics and conflict. This segment demands extensive detail and, as we said, strict political balance. We're starting with a massive diplomatic breakthrough involving sanctions, humanitarian concerns, and economic leverage in Belarus.
This story is a textbook example of high-stakes diplomatic pressure achieving a significant human rights objective. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko released 123 political prisoners.
Including some very high-profile names.
Yes, including Nobel Peace Prize laureate Elis Bialyatsky and the prominent opposition activist Maria Kolesnikova.
This was clearly a strategic move, not an ideological shift from Lukashenko. What was the exact mechanism of the deal?
The deal was brokered by U.S. envoy John Cole, connected to President Trump's diplomatic efforts. And in exchange for the release of these political prisoners, the U.S. agreed to lift targeted sanctions on Belarus's strategically vital potash fertilizer industry.
Ah, potash. Why is potash such a powerful leverage point globally?
Potash is essential for global agriculture. It's a fundamental mineral nutrient required for high-yield farming worldwide. Belarus is one of the world's largest producers.
So by sanctioning it, the U.S. was putting pressure not just on the Belarusian economy,
but on global food security itself. Lifting those sanctions provides massive economic relief to Minsk and, at the same time, eases global fertilizer price volatility. It's a win-win in a way.
And how did the opposition respond to this calculus of trading sanctions relief for human lives?
Opposition leader Svietlana Tikhanovskaya acknowledged the transactional nature of the deal, but she made a powerful statement. She said, "Pressure works."
Emphasizing that this wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Exactly. She stressed that the sustained international and domestic advocacy, coupled with the real economic pain of those sanctions, was the only reason Lukashenko agreed to the release. It validates the use of targeted economic pressure
to extract humanitarian concessions from authoritarian regimes.
Right.
Adding a slightly bizarre detail to this diplomatic package, Belarus also had to stop an alleged hybrid attack on Lithuania.
Yes, this was a strange one. Lithuania had been highly critical of Belarus, accusing them of facilitating a hybrid attack using sophisticated cigarette smuggling operations that involved releasing weather balloons.
Other balloons for smuggling.
Apparently. And these flights allegedly disrupted operations at Vilnius airport. So as part of the broader diplomatic agreement, Lukashenko consented to halting these balloon flights into Lithuanian airspace.
Which helps de-escalate that specific regional tension.
A very specific one.
Okay, moving to the core conflict in Europe, the Russia-Ukraine war. We have a major potential concession emerging from Kiev that could fundamentally alter the entire peace process.
This is a big one. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has indicated a serious willingness to abandon Ukraine's longstanding aspiration for NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, membership.
That is huge.
Yeah.
Because it aligns with a core foundational Russian demand that NATO expansion cease near its borders.
It's been a red line for Moscow for decades.
However, this concession comes with a major condition attached: It's not a free giveaway.
Indeed, it is conditional on Ukraine receiving legally binding, credible security guarantees from Western nations. These guarantees would need to go far beyond current military aid.
They'd need to establish a reliable, formalized framework to protect Ukraine against future Russian aggression without relying on the collective defense clause of NATO's Article 5.
Right, a different kind of protection.
And this signaling is happening concurrently with increased U.S. diplomatic involvement.
Yes, President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is reportedly meeting with Zelensky and allies in Berlin to discuss a possible peace roadmap.
And this roadmap is highly controversial.
It is. According to reports, the proposed conditions include Ukraine dropping its claims to the Russian-occupied territories of Crimea and significant parts of the Donbass region.
Let's delve into the stakes of that specific concession. For Ukraine, dropping the claim to Crimea, which Russia annexed back in 2014, is politically and emotionally almost impossible.
It is a massive concession, perhaps the greatest hurdle to any peace deal. Moscow's position is that Ukraine cannot militarily retake those territories, and thus reality dictates acceptance.
But for Kyiv,
For Kyiv, any such formal abandonment would be viewed by many internally as a profound betrayal of national sovereignty and a historical loss. The political fallout from such a concession for any Ukrainian leader would be immense.
this entire conflict is also being fought on the financial front, and the debate over what to do with frozen Russian central bank assets is intensifying dramatically.
It is. The EU is aggressively pursuing plans to use the interest generated by these frozen assets, we're talking tens of billions of dollars, to finance aid and reconstruction for Ukraine,
But this action is facing serious, multifaceted opposition.
creating a legal and diplomatic firestorm.
What are the main arguments against using these funds?
They fall into two main camps. First, you have Moscow, through Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, predictably condemning it as illegal theft and a grand scam. That's expected.
Right.
But crucially, several European leaders, notably Czech PM Andrej Babis and Hungary's Viktor Orban, also object. And their objection is based on the principle of international law and financial stability.
So what's their fear?
They argue that unilaterally seizing or redirecting the assets of a sovereign central bank, even a hostile one, creates a very dangerous precedent. It could destabilize the entire international financial system by causing other nations to fear that their own assets stored in Western jurisdictions might be seized for political reasons, potentially causing a mass withdrawal of funds from Europe. That's the fear of precedent. Financial warfare destabilizing global banking norms.
So it's the stability of the global financial architecture versus the urgency of funding Ukraine's defense.
That's the core tension.
And internally in Ukraine, there are also political pressures complicating any potential peace negotiation.
Yes, specifically concerning the legitimacy of the current government under martial law.
Under martial law, which has been in place since the 2022 invasion, elections have been postponed.
Right. So opponents within Ukraine, like MP Dmytruk, have raised concerns over the legitimacy of President Zelensky's continued leadership without a renewed electoral mandate.
And the Kremlin is naturally using this argument to complicate any negotiations.
It serves Moscow's narrative perfectly. It allows them to question the validity of any agreement signed by Zelensky's administration. So this internal political challenge creates a fundamental diplomatic stalemate for Ukraine moving forward.
And adding a layer of secrecy and alarm to this whole diplomatic environment
The reports that Western officials are alarmed over private clandestine meetings.
between Ukrainian negotiator Rustem Umerov and high-ranking FBI officials, including Director Kash Patel.
The secrecy is what's alarming the allies. Umerov, who is a critical figure in any peace process, is engaging in private talks with the FBI. The purpose remains totally unclear.
Is he seeking FBI assistance with corruption? Is he discussing the peace roadmap? No one knows.
And the exclusion of key Western allies from these discussions is generating significant anxiety. It raises concerns about back-channel deals and opaque maneuvering that could undermine a coordinated international strategy.
That is a highly volatile and layered conflict scenario. Let's pivot quickly to other active flashpoints globally, starting in the Middle East.
In the ongoing Gaza conflict, Israel announced the targeted killing of Red Saad, a senior commander of Hamas's military wing. He was identified as a key figure in weaponry and operational planning.
Hamas confirmed his death.
Yes, and they quickly reserved the right to retaliate, which immediately escalates the tension and just underscores the continuing cycle of violence in the region.
The tragedy in Sudan highlights the extreme risks faced by international aid and peacekeeping missions.
It was a horrific event. 6 Bangladeshi UN peacekeepers, part of the UNISFA mission, that's the United Nations Interim Security Force for Abai, were killed by a drone strike
Where did this happen?
at their logistics base in South Kordofan, which is near the contested Abai region. The attack is attributed to the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF.
And the UN Secretary General's immediate reaction was extremely strong.
Antonio Guterres condemned the strike as horrific and immediately emphasized that the targeting of UN peacekeepers who are specifically protected under international law could constitute a war crime.
This tragedy just underscores the severe humanitarian crisis and the utter breakdown of security in Sudan.
It's a disaster.
In Central Africa, regional conflict risk is soaring in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the DRC.
The DRC government has demanded UN sanctions against Rwanda, accusing them of breaching a 2013 peace agreement.
And the critical flashpoint is the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels.
Yes, who recently seized another major city. This action is fueling widespread fears that the fighting could trigger wider, devastating regional unrest across the already fragile Great Lakes region. It could potentially draw in neighboring states.
And tragically, we have harrowing human rights reports emerging from the conflict zones in West Africa, specifically Mali.
Reports from refugees fleeing Mali describe multiple harrowing instances of sexual violence, and these are attributed to Russian military personnel operating in the region.
Which raises significant alarm bells.
Aid workers and international observers are deeply alarmed by the frequency and brutality of these accounts. It brings up major questions about impunity in conflict zones and the protection of vulnerable populations.
Finally, we saw border tensions flare up unexpectedly in Southeast Asia.
Thailand launched a new military offensive along its disputed border with Cambodia in Trat Province. They're specifically attempting to reclaim sovereign territory they claim as their own.
And Cambodia's response?
Swift. They immediately halted all land border crossings.
And the interesting twist here is that this action disregards a previous international attempt at mediation.
That's the diplomatic complexity. Both nations appear to be disregarding a claimed ceasefire agreement that was supposedly prompted by U.S. President Donald Trump. It just suggests that the deeply entrenched local military dynamics and territorial claims are overriding any attempts at external mediation.
It demonstrates the persistent difficulty in resolving these historical border disputes.
They have very long memories.
Okay, now we analyze the shifting political landscape, starting with U.S. influence in the Western Hemisphere, which is generating starkly different reactions depending on where you stand.
On one side, we saw a powerful display of opposition to U.S. action. A coalition of intellectuals and social movements, including the ALBA organization, that's the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, strongly denounced the U.S. seizure of an oil tanker near Venezuela.
They framed this seizure as something much more aggressive than a simple legal action. They didn't see it as law enforcement.
No, they labeled it explicitly as piracy and the theft of national oil resources. It's reflective of these ongoing deep-seated tensions concerning maritime control and national sovereignty in the region. This narrative is often used by left-leaning governments to rally support against perceived imperial overreach.
Meanwhile, the U.S. administration is making a strategic move to solidify a new ally in the region.
That is the consideration of declaring Peru as a principal extra-NATO ally. This is a specific designation that grants significant benefits.
Like what?
It strengthens security ties, facilitates military cooperation, and increases access to advanced U.S. arms sales and technology.
What's the strategic goal behind granting Peru this special status?
The primary strategic objective is to counter the growing influence of nations like China and Russia in Latin America. By offering Peru enhanced security cooperation, the U.S. hopes to anchor the country firmly within the Western geopolitical sphere.
And limit opportunities for rivals to establish a greater foothold.
Exactly.
But critics are warning this could alter the regional power balance in a negative way.
It could. Critics argue that introducing this level of enhanced military cooperation and formalized alliance structure risks escalating an internal arms race or increasing regional tensions. Neighboring states may view the move as destabilizing the current balance of power.
We also have Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro weighing in dramatically on the concept of international recognition, specifically the Nobel Prize.
Yes, Maduro asserted that rejecting the Nobel Prize represents true ethical integrity, while accepting it constitutes imperialist betrayal.
This statement was highly localized and politically motivated, of
Oh,
course.
absolutely. It stands squarely against the backdrop of Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. His political base frames this external accolade as an effort by the West to manufacture legitimacy and undermine his government,
It uses the Nobel Prize as a symbolic tool in a domestic political war.
highlighting the polarized views on external validation versus national self-determination.
Moving over to Europe, Prime Minister Viktor Orban in Hungary is facing massive domestic protests that are really testing the stability of his long-running government.
His chief challenger, Peter Magyar, led tens of thousands of demonstrators in Budapest to protest the government's handling of a horrific child abuse scandal.
And the abuse occurred in state-run juvenile institutions.
Correct. And the government's response, or lack thereof, generated widespread, sustained public anger. And it's led to demands for profound political accountability and systemic reform.
Down in South America, Chile is bracing for a presidential runoff election.
And it's expected to cause the largest political swing to the right since the end of the dictatorship back in 1990.
That's a huge shift. What's driving it?
This political shift is heavily fueled by one specific issue: immigration. Right-wing factions have skillfully politicized the issue, exploiting public fears regarding borders, security, and economic strain. By framing migrants as scapegoats for societal issues, these factions are successfully influencing voter perception.
And driving a dramatic rightward trajectory in the national political dialogue.
Exactly.
We're seeing similar displays of domestic dissent across Eastern Europe. In Georgia, widespread protests are targeting Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili.
Critics accuse Garibashvili of undermining democratic principles and suppressing dissent through centralized power. Large gatherings in the capital, Tbilisi, are demanding accountability and reform.
It highlights ongoing concerns about the erosion of democratic processes in post-Soviet states.
And the struggle against centralized governmental authority.
In Central America, political instability continues in Honduras, with claims of electoral fraud leading to a severe impasse.
The Libre Party, one of the major political entities, announced it will not recognize the legitimacy of the government resulting from the recent elections, alleging widespread electoral fraud.
And the government's response?
In turn, the Honduran government lodged a formal complaint to international bodies, denouncing alleged interference by the United States in the electoral process, claiming breaches of national sovereignty.
So both sides are using international forums to escalate their claims of illegitimacy and interference.
A total stalemate.
Bringing us back to the U.S.-Europe relationship, a prominent German political figure, Friedrich Merz, declared that the era of Pax Americana is definitively over.
Merz's statement reflects a growing and significant European sentiment. Pax Americana refers to that period of relative peace and stability since World War II, which was underpinned by the massive economic and military power of the United States.
And Merz is saying that's done.
He argued that shifting U.S. interests, particularly policies like the previous Trump administration's unilateral tariff impositions, necessitate that the European Union seek genuine self-reliance.
Meaning Europe must unite and develop its own strength in defense and economic policy.
Exactly. It's a call for strategic autonomy. It's driven by the realization that the U.S. cannot be assumed as a stable, sole geopolitical anchor, especially as global power shifts and conflicts with Russia and China intensify.
And related to that trade policy, President Trump has pointed out that the now dwindling revenue generated from his tariffs could be allocated to fund at least 9 distinct areas.
Which highlights a contentious ongoing debate. This is the argument for using trade barriers as a strategic funding mechanism for domestic priorities. Supporters view tariffs as a successful tool to protect domestic industry and generate revenue.
But critics
Continually question the overall sustainability, the economic efficiency, and the impact on consumer prices that result from using trade policy to manage domestic budget requirements.
Let's look at the immense infrastructure demands created by the artificial intelligence boom, which is generating significant sustainability concerns.
It's the classic technological paradox, isn't it? AI offers immense efficiency, but the infrastructure needed to run the foundational models is just immensely resource-intensive.
It creates a triple threat environmentally.
It does. The immense growth in AI data centers requires massive, round-the-clock energy consumption for processing. That's one. Second, they need extensive water use for cooling the servers. And third, they generate substantial electronic waste from components that rely on mined metals and rapidly become obsolete.
And governments are clearly struggling to balance innovation with implementing sustainable practices to prevent exacerbating environmental crises.
The challenge is so severe that it is pushing the industry toward truly radical solutions. We are seeing major tech companies, including Google and potentially SpaceX, exploring the possibility of launching data centers into space by 2027.
Moving the processing infrastructure off-planet to address terrestrial constraints. That's a huge conceptual shift.
It is. The goal is to offload the massive physical, energy, and water burden associated with ultra-fast AI processing. Move the environmental footprint off-planet while simultaneously achieving the necessary low-latency, high-speed processing needed for the next generation of AI.
Shifting to urban mobility, Hong Kong is planning a futuristic transport solution in the next couple of years.
Hong Kong aims to introduce passenger-carrying eVTOLs, that's electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles.
Essentially high-tech electric passenger drones.
Exactly. And they plan to do this within the next 2 to 3 years. These services are intended to operate at significantly lower costs than traditional helicopter services.
This aligns with China's broader national plan to develop the low-altitude economy.
It signals a significant governmental commitment to transforming urban transport and integrating this new form of air mobility into highly dense vertical cities to alleviate ground-level congestion.
Meanwhile, in India's massive automotive sector, we are seeing a major consolidation move designed to create an end-to-end mobility ecosystem.
Used car platform Spinny is set to acquire the car servicing startup Go Mechanic in a deal valued at approximately 450 crore rupees, which is around 54 million US dollars.
And this move is strategic.
Very. Spinny is integrating Go Mechanic's after-sales service network across over 150 cities. The goal is to corner the market by providing a comprehensive service, from buying a used car to maintaining it throughout its life.
Looking at the broader business landscape, several key sectors are experiencing significant turbulence. Hollywood, for example, is enduring deep upheaval over the management of Warner Bros.
Industry professionals are describing the environment as a nightmare, specifically due to corporate decisions that are seen as prioritizing short-term financial gains over long-term creative integrity and content quality.
This corporate calculus has led to widespread uncertainty regarding job security and artistic freedom, creating serious friction within the creative industry.
Absolutely. And on top of that, major media consolidation is expected, with strong rumors that Netflix is preparing to acquire Paramount, a move that would dramatically reshape the competitive landscape of the entire streaming business.
Economically, the U.S. labor market is in a peculiar state of inertia that experts warn carries long-term risks.
Experts describe the projected 2025 labor market as stagnant, a no-hire, no-fire environment. Companies, cautious about future fluctuations, are reluctant both to expand staffing and to downsize.
Why is this inertia problematic? Why not just stay put?
This unwillingness to adapt risks a potential market crack in 2026. If businesses cannot or will not hire or fire when needed, they lose agility. When the next economic fluctuation hits, they will be unable to quickly adjust staffing, potentially leading to sharper, more painful corrections rather than a smooth adaptation.
And over in China, Beijing is urgently trying to stabilize a deeply precarious business climate by tackling a systemic issue.
Government debt to private companies. The central government is forcing local governments to clear significant, long overdue debts owed to private firms.
And the primary goal?
To enhance transparency and improve the business climate. These debts have severely hampered the cash flow and confidence of the private sector, a pivotal part of the Chinese economy, and clearing them is seen as essential for restoring investor and business confidence.
Finally, before we transition, a quick overview of the extreme weather battering the U.S. coast to coast.
The Pacific Northwest, Washington, and Oregon experienced severe flooding and landslides due to powerful atmospheric rivers. This forced significant family displacements and infrastructure damage.
And at the same time, on the other side of the country,
the East Coast is bracing for intense winter conditions. Pittsburgh expects heavy snow, Philadelphia faces dangerous cold and slick roads, and the D.C. area expects snow followed by a punishing, potentially deadly cold snap.
We must begin this segment by addressing the tragic and horrific mass shooting that occurred at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, during a Hanukkah celebration.
It was an awful event. This targeted attack resulted in 11 to 12 fatalities and numerous injuries, specifically striking the local Jewish community.
The alleged gunman was named as 24-year-old Naveed Akram from Sydney.
Yes. And what stands out in the midst of this tragedy is the immense heroism displayed by a local resident. Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a 43-year-old local fruit seller, demonstrated extraordinary bravery by courageously tackling the alleged gunman.
He was shot twice and requires serious surgery, but his actions undoubtedly saved lives.
Absolutely.
The societal impact was immediate and global. Security had to be increased at Jewish community events worldwide, including Chanukah lighting ceremonies in places like Scottsdale.
It underscores the ongoing threat of targeted violence against religious and communal gatherings globally, and this tragedy spotlights the critical need for comprehensive public safety measures and highlights the importance of individual courage in the face of targeted violence.
Shifting to accountability, a deeply disturbing incident occurred within the gig economy.
And it highlights the need for far greater oversight in the last-mile delivery services.
What happened?
A DoorDash driver in Evansville, Indiana, was charged with a felony after allegedly spraying a customer's food with an irritating substance suspected to be pepper spray. It caused severe adverse reactions and required the customer's hospitalization.
This incident forces us to confront the severe oversight challenges and the breakdown of basic trust that must be addressed within the last-mile delivery sector.
To ensure public safety and accountability.
In the UK, public safety efforts are focusing intently on addressing gender-based violence.
Yes, the UK government has pledged to establish specialist sexual offense teams in all police forces nationwide. This is a crucial and long overdue part of a major strategic goal aimed at having violence against women and girls over the next decade.
Focusing on enhanced investigation and victim support.
That's the idea.
Now, let's turn to culture and history, shining a light on 3 specific unsung Caribbean heroes who shaped global movements that deserve far more recognition.
These figures were pioneers in intersectionality and political thought. First, there's Claudia Jones from Trinidad and Tobago. She was a pivotal intellectual figure in intersectionality and famously organized the first West Indian Carnival in London,
Shaping British multiculturalism.
profoundly. Then there is Anna Betancourt of Cuba.
Betancourt was pivotal in the nascent feminist movements during the 10 Years' War in Cuba, advocating for women's rights within the struggle for independence. And finally, Paulette Nardal from Martinique.
Nardal was essential in creating the intellectual space and journals for Black thinkers that eventually gave rise to the pivotal Negritude movement, a powerful literary and ideological challenge to French colonial rule.
These individuals demonstrate that the history of resilience and global political thought is far richer and more complex than traditional, often Eurocentric narratives suggest.
Absolutely.
Finally, let's wrap up with some cultural and sporting highlights. Wrestling legend John Cena officially retired after his final WWE match against Gunther.
Marking the end of a truly remarkable 24-year career as one of the biggest names in the sport.
And longevity wasn't limited to wrestling. 71-year-old Paul Lim, affectionately known as the Singapore Slinger, became the oldest player ever to win a match in the PDC World Darts Championship.
It's a fantastic reminder that precision and experience can triumph over youthful energy.
Culturally, we're seeing a surge in the popularity of Korean cooking in the UK, reflecting global gastronomic trends. And homeowners are apparently ditching the muted tones of neutral beige in favor of bold colors to spark joy and creativity in their living spaces.
I can get behind that.
And finally, a touching royal note. King Charles III, who is scaling back his cancer treatment following positive developments, sent a special postbox to Antarctic researchers.
This small gesture was intended to boost morale and connect the isolated researchers with home, a significant lift in an incredibly remote environment.
That was an immense and deeply detailed deep dive into a truly staggering stack of global material.
It was a lot to get through.
We covered the profound potential of AI in diagnosing chronic stress through the Adrenal Volume Index, which promises to transform preventative cardiology. We analyzed the high-leverage diplomatic victory in Belarus, where humanitarian goals were achieved through the strategic economic tool of potash sanctions.
And we received a stark historical warning, noting the climatic fragility demonstrated by the slow collapse of the Indus Valley civilization due to centuries of unrelenting drought. We learned about 24,000-year-old biploid rotifers and the first generation of passenger eVTOL drones aiming for the skies of Hong Kong.
But here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. We spend time confirming that our fundamental understanding of reality is far stranger than we realized.
It really is.
Modern physics verified the existence of time reflections, where signals exhibit a reversal of their temporal characteristics when a medium changes rapidly. And science confirmed that lucid dreaming is not a simple binary state, but a third, distinct hybrid state of consciousness, blurring the lines between sleep and wakefulness.
So if the most fundamental concepts of our reality, time, matter, and consciousness are consistently proving to be less stable, less defined, and more nuanced than we ever thought possible, what does that imply about the stability and predictability of the complex geopolitical and economic systems we observe today?
Yeah.
Exactly. What other third states, hidden dimensions, or unseen fundamental forces are currently influencing the chaos, the sudden shifts, and the high-stakes bargaining we see globally? You might be closer to a paradigm shift in physics, in biology, and in politics than you realize.
A lot to think about.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll be here next time, diving deep into the next stack of sources.
You're enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.